Want to call to order this meeting of the Huntingburg Common Council. Sir, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, thank you for all those that continue to serve this city, those that are present today and those that are serving around the city on a daily basis. Please be with them and comfort them, give them, especially during these times, the storms that were suffered and so many people suffered here, loss of property and also the threat of our own employees as they were out working. Thank you for watching over them. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to ask just one thing too. Since the last meeting, we've had both last week, Phyllis Minky, George Llewellyn passed away, and we just asked for a moment of silence in honor of those two. Thank you all. Okay. First of all, we got asked for approval of the minutes, a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second it. We got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of claims. You've had a chance to review the claims. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
I'll second.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. First thing I want to do today is we have Tammy Humbert here today with the Du Bois County Emergency Management Agency. As part of our county, I think it's every 5 years, she'll go into a little more detail. The emergency management plan is put together. Several Huntingburg employees, including myself, sat through the sessions to put that together. Also in our city comprehensive plan versus having a separate emergency management plan. We chose, I think, at the last adoption of that comprehensive plan to follow the counties and also as part of that to be a part of the planning process. Tammy did a great job and there were some good conversations. And if you want to introduce who you're with here too.
So I'm Tammy Humpert, Director of Du Bois County EMA, and Narissa Zink is my Deputy Director, and she's along to learn how to present and do all that with this mitigation plan. And the resolution is just being asked to be adopted so that the county can adopt the entire plan. And then what will happen is, once I have all the resolutions in, we'll submit that to the state and then on to the federal government for approval of that plan. But as you said, Mayor, it was a fabulous group of people that came. It was one of the largest crowds we've had in our 2 public meetings. So the plan is ready now. We have hired a company to actually write the entire plan. We're responsible for a match. So part of this meeting will help us with that match. The sign-in sheet is what that is about. So the mitigation plan just helps entities get federal funding. So if you don't have an idea in the plan, the chances of you getting funded for that are very slim. So it's a pretty important plan. It's adopted every 5 years.
So this plan was written by a firm that was, a consulting firm that was hired?
We hired.
With input from the local?
Yes. And again, I've been doing this since 2014, so this is my 3rd update. So it pretty much is just every year, every 5 years, it's just updated with new ideas presented. So, and again, this year was one of our best years with ideas to add to the plan.
And 5 years ago, the city joined the plan and adopted as well.
Correct.
So we have probably, I don't know how many hours you put into it, but thank you very much. So before you, we also have a resolution for adoption to take the emergency management plan for the city of Huntingburg to adopt. That's resolution number 2024-11. Should have a copy of that in your board pack. We'll need a motion to approve that resolution. if you have any questions regarding the resolution, we have Tammy here too.
I do have, but I'm just curious, of our adopting of the resolution, is it obligating the city to any financial, any payments or?
No, absolutely not. It is just opening the city of Huntingburg up for the possibility to apply for federal funding. Typically, I have Nathan Held with Indiana Region 15 with me to help you understand that a lot of the grants that they apply for and that they're contracted to work on need to be in this plan in order for them to be able to proceed. So absolutely no additional cost. This is honestly there to help you with cost so that you can apply.
So this will be approved by Huntingburg, Jasper?
Everywhere.
And then the
Yes.
county council? And
Yes, I've already had it approved by the county commissioners. The town of Ferdinand approved it last week. Huntingburg is tonight. I have Birdseye, Holland, and the city of Jasper to go in June. All four of the schools have already signed their resolutions, and we have one privately owned dam that has to also do that, and that's the Chanelville Conservation Club. So I've received all of those. So it's just a process.
Gotcha.
And I get to come and see you all.
One thing that's a positive with working with the county is that we can show that we're part of a regional or county plan, and that there was a systematic way of determining the hazards that may, we actually had them at different levels, the type of hazards, and what the threat of those hazards were. So if you have to apply for a grant to put a new dam at the lake or something, and we've already recognized that as an issue, which, by the way, it is not. We did not list that on there. We did look at areas that may be flooded as a result downstream of it, but there wasn't too much, I think, from a commercial standpoint, really was all. But if we want funding in the future to fix that, we've now identified it and it's been developed. So you get extra points if you're part of the county. Well,
That's good. Pretty, a lot of information there. Thank you.
Yes, there's a lot of information. Another reason why it is contracted out with IU Bullet Center, because they help us not miss a beat on it. It's a very detailed plan. It really is.
It's basically they try to find every hazard that could possibly.
Anything, including wildfires. That's a brand new one that has to be incorporated into it. And that was not something that we had already had a plan on. So we're currently working on adding that little, a little bit to.
Explosions.
They're all under there as a, like hazmat opportunity, things to that degree.
And some of those.
Yep, we sure have. We've had a lot in our county. In my 14 years, there's been a lot.
So we have a motion.
So is this a motion to adopt, or is this a motion to introduce?
No, this is a resolution, so you can adopt it. So you want to vote.
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None. So
I think there's a vote, so Kaitlyn.
Aye.
Vance. Aye. McFerrin.
Aye.
Bolte.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
I appreciate it. Makes my job much easier.
we'll get that signed for you and back to you. So
Yes. Do you want me to wait for that? Stick around and wait for that, or do you want me to just get that at a different
we
day?
can get that to you. Can we
Okay.
do electronically? You need the live version, or do you need?
No, you can, honestly, the only thing I would need is the sign-in sheets that I passed around. That'd be the only thing.
Copies.
I think that's finished.
Send it out.
Almost.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Glad you came to see
Good
us.
job.
Yeah, glad anytime. I can see you. Do you want copies of the sign-in sheet as well, or do you need?
No, we don't need those if you want to take those.
All right, thanks.
More to find if we-
Right. Next up, we have Darren Jacobs with Crossvine Solar. I know Paul and Phil have been working with Mr. Jacobs on decommissioning. And I've kind of explained what that means and.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. As the mayor said, my name is Darren Jacobs, and I work with Light Source BP. We're developing the Crossvine Solar Project. And I'm here tonight just to tell you a little bit about the project, but I also have an ask for you at the end as well. But just to give you a little information on the project, this is a 100 megawatt solar project with 100 megawatts of battery energy storage. The reason why I'm here before you is that a portion of the project is in your extraterritorial jurisdiction. So just to give you a little bit of context, the project right now, the project is west of the Huntingburg Regional Airport and east of the town of Holland. The portion that's in your extraterritorial jurisdiction is, the southwest portion that's kind of, southwest of the school. This project, as a whole, we have 1,600 acres leased, but what will ultimately end up being used is somewhere around 650 acres. Out of the ground that we have leased, there's only 260 of it that is in your extraterritorial, and we looked at possibly 165 of those acres being used. This project represents $251 million in capital investment in Du Bois County and in your jurisdiction. As far as new revenue, we're looking at for tax base for the county, creating revenue sources. Based on the current tax rates, the expected total property tax paid over 25-year life of the project is over $17.9 million. And during the project, we looked at that there could be up to 200 jobs during the course of the project. The reason why specifically I'm here tonight, and we've been working with Paul for a couple years now, and we've actually been working with the county as well. Your city actually has in your UDO some standards as far as solar development. Part of those solar requirements are a decommissioning plan and also posting a decommissioning financial assurance. So our solar project, as most solar projects, have an expected life. So right now, this project is 25 years with the possibility of extending it out another 10 years, so a possible 35-year life for the project. At the end of the project, everything's taken out. So the one thing with solar is that it is designed to be a temporary land use. Temporary in the scheme of, 35 years may not seem temporary, but when you look at it compared to subdivision or some type of industrial investment, it is temporary in the idea that, at the end of that 35 years, everything comes out of the ground and it goes back to being farmed. One of the requirements, and most jurisdictions have this, including you and the county, and I will say that we did, we worked with the county and we passed a decommissioning agreement with them last Monday, is to make sure that there's a plan in place that in the event that something happens and that we're not able to take the project out, or in the event that there's some issue, that the county is, or in this case the city, is covered to make sure that there's funding there available so that that won't be stuck there. I use it as the, kind of the, we're more familiar with what happens when a big box retailer or something goes out, like a Walmart, and then you have this building now that's not really used. Most type of development does not have any type of a decommissioning fund or agreement put into place, but a lot of times it's pretty standard with solar. So your ordinance requires that we put up a financial assurance. And so what we've presented to you tonight, and it's very similar to what we've, like I say, already presented and passed with the county, is a decommissioning agreement that covers, basically spells out the process in which, and is based on your ordinance as well, as to what points the project would be considered non-operational. So your ordinance requires that if the result of the absence of electric generation for 6 months, it's considered non-operational. So at that point, it would fall under the ability to tap into this fund and begin decommissioning, or the requirement of us to start decommissioning. And then this also spells out at what point prior to operation that we post a financial assurance with you, and how that is handled. what the rights are of the city, and just some other, standard language. So again, what we're proposing tonight is to enter into the decommissioning agreement with us as part of our requirement to fulfill your ordinance as it relates to solar. And then Phil has reviewed it, and I'm sure he probably has some things to say on it as well, but and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, you can see the last page, attachment A is the actual plan, what has to be done to decommission the facility. But the agreement itself goes into much more detail in describing the fact that within 60 days prior to going live, they have to post a bond or some acceptable surety that would cover the cost of decommissioning. And that cost is to be determined by a licensed engineer, independent licensed engineer. And every 5 years after operation, that's to be reviewed and determined what the actual cost of decommissioning is. And the bond has to be renewed or increased or decreased if the costs go down. If for some reason, whoever the owner of that facility is, at the time of termination or expiration of the lease or termination of generation, does not do the decommissioning, that fund is available to be tapped by the county and by the city to make sure it gets, the plan is carried out and the property is decommissioned. Those are the requirements that are in our UDO, and the agreement complies with our UDO. So I don't believe there's any grounds in which we could deny approval of this because they comply with what we said they have to comply with in our UDO.
We're a total of about 15 acres included for the city.
No, so there's about 260 acres that is under your jurisdiction.
Okay.
And we looked that probably 165 of those will be what we call behind the fence. So that will be the area that's actually covered with panels. So that's what we have, about 260 acres that are leased. And yeah, we are splitting this up so that, what we will be covering with you is just the area that's under your jurisdiction. And then what is under the county's jurisdiction, we have the separate agreement that's already been executed with them. So there's neither one of the bodies will hold it, but
Access to the fund, yeah.
yeah, but when we actually do calculate what those costs are, it'll be based on the portion that's under your jurisdiction. So,
And what percentage is in our jurisdiction? What was the total? I'm sorry.
so the total acres leased is about 1,600, and about 260 of those acres are in your jurisdiction.
Who owns the property that's going on?
I'm sorry.
Who owns the property it's going to go on?
So this, I think there's two landowners, so this, hold on a second. Make sure I got it right. Actually, I'm sorry, there's three landowners. Vocal and Ponder Yonder and Schmidt Properties.
I'm not sure where these locations are at.
Here, I can, this might be helpful.
The power generators with these, who would that benefit?
This might be helpful. This gives you an idea. You can pass this around, whatever. You can see this is the portion that is your jurisdiction.
These panels are all going on here. So inside the yellow, that's where all these panels are?
So that is the boundary line, but that, again, that's not necessarily where everything will go. That is what we have leased. So out of, like I said, out of the 1,600 acres that are leased, really only about 650 of them will actually be used. So that kind of represents, the yellow represents areas that we have under lease, but won't necessarily be areas, all those areas will not necessarily be areas.
Clear with Phil, approving the decommissioning plans. Not the construction others.
And I should also point out, sorry, this, back in August, we did come before your plan commission and they did approve the site plan. And so this has been approved from a zoning perspective. All we're doing tonight is coming to make sure that we continue to fulfill those obligations in your ordinance and what is set, because we also did present a version of this agreement when we submitted to the Plan Commission, because that was a requirement as well. So the Plan Commission did see a version of this agreement, but again, that was back last August, I think.
What is the amount that's in this fund, and is it like, is there something set up for inflation or something to account for that?
So it'll be based on, as Phil said, so in the agreement, we'll get a licensed engineer. And I think your ordinance also requires that Paul Lake will also have to take a look at whatever we present to make sure that that it looks accurate. So we'll have a licensed engineer who will present a plan that shows how much would actually, what it would cost to remove it. And then every 5 years, that has to be reviewed. So to your point, the inflation would be, I mean, that could go up, could go down, depending on the material and the market and things like that. But that way, it does stay current, yeah.
So is there an actual fund, an account created and money's gonna be deposited into that account on an
So-
annual basis to build?
It won't be cash. It'll be, there'll be probably more like a letter of credit will be what is set up, that you will be the beneficiary of, that is set up in that amount.
So it's similar to a surety bond. In a letter of credit, it's what's known as a standby letter of credit. That we would receive a letter from a financial institution that says that they guarantee payment of this much amount toward this decommissioning should they fail to do so.
It's almost like an insurance policy.
Yeah, it is. It's probably a less expensive way if you have good financial relationships with a bank or a financial institution. It's probably cheaper than getting a surety bond, but it's just as reliable.
And just one other thing to point out too, and I kind of, again, we're Light Source BP. So currently BP, so British Petroleum, is a 49.99% stakeholder in Light Source BP. But it was announced back last fall that Light Source BP will be absorbed fully into BP sometime middle of this year. So BP is buying us out completely. So we will continue to be a development arm. We will still operate as Light Source BP, but just to the point of, we're not just a couple of guys out of a garage. So we have good relationships with our lending institutions, and British Petroleum obviously has been around for a long time and will probably continue to be around. So we hope that also carries some weight into these discussions, especially around decommissioning and what's going to happen at the end of the project.
What is the tax impact to Huntingburg?
I don't have that number.
Is there an impact though, a positive impact, or is
Oh, yeah, I mean,
county or what?
well, because we're not within your town boundaries, but there is a benefit to the county. I mean, we're under your jurisdiction as far as zoning requirements, but again, it's not like, I don't think that there would be extra tax revenue going directly to the city.
School corporation and probably
Yeah.
the fire.
Yes,
Through the property taxes.
yeah. So there would be a benefit to the county as a whole and to those underlying, like the fire department, the township, the library, school.
Okay, just curious, do we have any kind of obligation as far as policing or fire? I mean, I don't know if these things ever catch fire, but
So-
do we have a responsibility to take care of that if it does happen? What are we committing to?
Well, it's
Something
in
like that.
Patoka Township, but we do have a fire agreement with Patoka Township. So yeah, we would come to their aid should that be an issue.
We also have a mutual agreement with Cass.
Yeah.
Part of Cass, so we have a mutual agreement with Cass.
And we have had conversations with your fire chief about this. I have sat down with him myself to talk about this, and we'll have ongoing conversations as we get closer into construction, because that's always a concern, even during construction and then through the life. We always like to have have those conversations and hopefully, if possible, provide training and discussions on how best to handle any type of situation that comes up. So, yeah, it won't be a hands-off situation. We will have specific conversations, our safety folks will, with the fire departments around here to make sure that they understand and that we work with them to make sure everyone's safe.
Once it's decommissioned, it has to be farmable land.
Yeah, well, that'll be up to the landowners as to what it ends up, but the goal would be that it would be in as good a shape, if not better. There's no concrete poured, the posts that everything sits on are just driven in the ground. They can be pulled back up. And so I've got the jars of honey out there because we also plant, under the panels are all planted with a pollinator-friendly mix. So they tend to be, so it's a diverse mix. So you're going from something that's corn, beans, to having a cover crop year-round that is also a diverse crop, so it's not just a monoculture, and hopefully will bring back some nutrients and things to the soil after 35 years. It's almost like having the ground in CRP land for 35 years. So hopefully that when everything gets decommissioned out of it and they go back to farming it in 35 years, if that's what they choose to do with it, then it'll be as productive, if not more productive than what it was before we showed up.
I'm sorry, I missed what you had said before. Where is this energy going then?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't get that addressed. So this will go on to, I think it's CenterPoint owns the transmission lines it'll go on to. But I know that's always a kind of a question that comes up, and there's a little bit of like misconception, I think, sometimes that when you put it on the transmission lines that somehow it goes somewhere far away. But electric, it takes the path of least resistance, and it's basically instantaneous. So just because we put it on those transmission lines doesn't mean that it's not still the same electrons that may be powering somewhere here, or it could be miles or even states away. It's just all about the grid being balanced. So from a standpoint of where those electrons that get produced right here end up, they could as easily end up here as what they could be in 2 states over. As far as who buys the power, that's a question we do. We have different ways in which we do that. A lot of times the power gets sold to a utility company. We also do what are power purchase agreements, where sometimes large companies that want to offset their carbon footprint or even just lock in their electric price, say like Google or Walmart or Amazon or Verizon, we do an agreement with them for 15 years where essentially we're selling them that power at a certain rate. Now, it's not like we're delivering it directly to them, but that's a way that they can keep their bills stable. I know it's not an easy question, but it's the best.
Thank you.
They sell the carbon credits is basically what it, right?
Well,
Make them available.
yeah, and there's, it's a power generation, and the thing is that solar it's stable as opposed to other fuel sources where we can lock in a price for somebody for 15 years, because once you have the upfront cost of it going in, we don't have to worry about the cost of gas or coal or something else going up. So if you own a big company or even a utility, it's nice to have that kind of assurance that this is how much it's going to cost me, and we can negotiate now for the next 15 years of what that power is going to be. We all wish we could probably do that with our electric bills, to negotiate and say, hey, for the next 15 years, this is what I want to pay. On your, again, I just want to hit on, so this, the honey that's on your desk came from a project that we have that's in operation, that's in Henry and Rush County, which is where I'm from. And so this is the Bellflower Solar Project. It's been in operation for a year now. And we have both sheep grazing on that site, and we also have honey being produced. We have another project that's up by South Bend, the Honeysuckle Project, that should be in operation within the next couple of months. And so this, along with a couple other projects that we have going in Indiana, are the next ones up to start construction.
I'm just curious about the big picture. You mentioned sheep grazing. Is that is that, would you, I guess, consider a dual use for the property?
Yeah.
And is that gonna happen here locally, something like
So
that?
potentially, it's called agrovoltaics. So it is a dual use, and it's becoming more and more of an industry standard. It's something that we've been doing for years. So even when Lightsource BP started in the UK, we were doing pollinator plantings, beekeeping, and grazing back more than a decade ago. And we've continued that through the US. So I don't know what percentage of our projects, but we consider it on every project. Not every project gets sheep grazing. We do a cover crop, whatever works best in that native environment on all of our projects. And we try to make it, pollinator friendly. But yeah, the industry as a whole is looking for ways that it's can be more dual use. And we'll continue to see innovation, but right now the best way to do that is with sheep grazing, because they can take care of the vegetative management. So rather than us have to mow, they're actually more efficient and gentler on the equipment than lawnmowers. And there's a benefit there because we're actually paying someone, a farmer, normally someone who's fairly local to the area, who can, now they have essentially a massive pasture that they're getting paid to keep mowed down. So it can be a win-win for both sides in that case.
What kind of timelines are we looking at as far as starting construction, and when will it be done? And
So this project right now, we're looking to start probably early summer, early midsummer next year is kind of the goal. And as far as timeline, probably 12 to 14 months construction. So, ideally we would have this, if we started middle of next year, we would have it done by the end of 26, be in operation would be the goal, I think. Early 27, somewhere in that time range. We also have just so you're aware, we have a road use agreement as well with the county. So all of prior to us starting construction, there'll be a requirement that we will actually take a visual inspection, we'll record and document the condition of all the roads in the project area. And we will post a bond with the county for that as well, to make sure that the roads that are put back in as good a condition, if not better, after we're done with construction. And there's also requirements in that agreement to keep the roads open and to keep them safe and passable, and to maintain them during construction as well. But we've already executed that with the county as well. So we have an agreement that if there's any issues that come up with those roads, they'll be taken care of.
So essentially, this meets our,
Our UDO requirements of that.
yeah, so we just approve, we just need to make a.
Yeah, because in our UDO, the UDO provides for that the decommissioning agreement will be approved by the council. That's just the way we adopted the ordinance,
That's us.
as opposed to the planning.
we just received this today. I haven't had a chance to read any of it. So is there an issue with us tabling it until the next meeting?
And what's your time frame? They're considering tabling it because they apparently just got it.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, there's no issue. I don't know whether I'll be at your next meeting.
I read the requirement of it.
But no, I mean, this isn't, if it's tabled for the next, that's not going to slow us down any, it's not going to stop anything from our standpoint.
Okay. Is that okay to put that up, just put it on the agenda for the next meeting? I'd just like to,
Yeah, since it's on the agenda, you can make a motion.
Yeah, it's a motion, and I get a second, I'll let you
Just
get that to happen. I mean,
Okay.
so that's up to everybody here.
If you feel uncomfortable for it, I table it off. and motion to-
I just feel better about having a chance to look it over
I
first.
agree.
So I make a motion to table the decision, or the vote till the next meeting.
I'll second.
All those, motion is to table decision next meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll table this to the next meeting, which is what, the 12th? 11th?
I think it's 11th.
So I got a question. In 25 years, when this comes up for decommission or whatever,
says to continue on or decommission, or how does that work? Is it the landowners and the,
So we have agreements with all these landowners, and there's a life to those agreements. So it's 25 years, but we can extend it into 5 year increments.
okay,
So potentially, we could extend it up to 35 years. At the end of 35 years, unless we've come to another agreement with those landowners, which to continue or repower that, at that point, it's essentially, we would have to remove the equipment. The way to kind of think of it is, it's like any other, farm rental situation, where if you're a landowner and you're renting your farm ground out to someone, usually those are maybe a couple of years. Ours is just a longer version of that.
the
So
farmer says, I like to have my land back, it's. no-
at the end of 35 years, or at the end of whatever the term is, yep,
Yeah.
then it's still his land. It's always his land. We're just a tenant.
I understand.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
what's the lifespan of the panels?
Well, the thing is, right now, what we think is that there will still be those panels, even at the end of 35 years, will still, they're not going bad. They would just be less efficient. So there's a potential for a secondary market on those panels. Just because they're at the end of 35 years doesn't mean that they're no longer usable. Actually, the bigger issue is kind of all the infrastructure that's around them. So if you think about everything's sitting outside for 35 years, and everything's made of steel and other components. So just over the life, things wear out, just like everything that you deal with here in the city. Things just wear out, just like playground equipment. Everything has a kind of a life to it that sits outside all the time. So that's why it'll all be taken
I
out.
understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy to
So
answer.
before the next meeting, if anyone has questions, can they contact you either by email or telephone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm happy to, if you want to email me, call me directly, that's fine. Or I can, we can set up a Teams meeting or whatever if there's multiple folks that have a question. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great.
And I'm sorry, what was the date of that next meeting?
June 11th
June 11th.
at 5:30 p.m.
All right. I unfortunately will not be here. I will be on a beach in Florida. So don't feel bad for me.
That's where the meeting's at.
If we have to move it, we have to move it.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll call on Energy Superintendent John Rutherford. Had some storms this week. I don't know if you have any updates or any.
My panel's gonna track what it fixed.
They will track.
Yep.
They will, as opposed to probably I don't know what IMPA's got here, probably
They are
fixed bands.
fixed. Yeah.
With smaller ones, yeah, these will track.
They will track.
All the sun. Yeah.
Council,
Howdy.
I imagine everybody had a sigh of relief after Sunday night. We didn't. Thought it was gonna get pretty rough, but I think we lucked out. Unfortunate, some of them didn't. Communities, it tore up pretty good. So anyway, I'll start off with the gas. Back in January, we had this pretty deep cold spell. We did notice a drop in our gas pressure over in the Ireland area. We still had gas to everybody, but we just noticed a drop. So we got with USDI. They have a computer module. They got a mapping of our system. So we've been working with them the last couple of months, sending all the pressures to them. We had to go out and verify a lot of gas line, the sizes. So we took our vac machine over the last several weeks to a month. We backed out several spots just to verify that, what we had on our map matches what's in the ground. Then after they plugged it into their computer module, we did come up with there's a restriction over in this one block. We got 1.25 inch steel feeding two 2-inch gas mains, which that's kind of a restriction or a choke point. So they recommended we bore in a 4-inch pipe about block long, just north of Ireland Elementary School. We're gonna do that next week. Since we're going from steel to plastic, there's 4 house services on there that have steel services, so we're gonna have to bore in new services to the houses, because we gotta change it over to plastic too, because otherwise we won't have cathodic protection. That would deteriorate the steel gas line. So we got that ordered, and we had to go over and back out some of the other utilities to make sure we won't be hitting them when we bore it. So USDI is gonna be over next week, so that should help alleviate the drop in pressure for next winter. And we had to wait till the summertime to do it, since the usage is way down, so we can tie it in. There's a regulator station. We're gonna go from a regulator station about 500 feet to the west and tie in to the other 2-inch lines. So that should alleviate that problem. And then the crew's been replacing some gas meters. They've had 13 modules, so we should be pretty well finished on them. And you can see they changed out 118 meters last month. And they're continuing to do that while the cold weather's behind us. So with that, I'd like to get approval to order 250 more gas meters. That cost, which a total I got there in the red. Get them in. So we will be changing them out pretty regular basis now, because the new housing is kind of slowed down. So it gives us ample time to change out the meters while the warm weather. So we'll need a
I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of 250 gas meters.
All those in favor?
There's only one. It's from Grubner. They're the only vendor that's allowed to sell them. The only ones we can get them from. So,
Territorial.
yep. So that's why I didn't have no 3 quotes.
I do have a question about changing out the gas meters. When they come to the house and they change out your gas meter, I had a couple residents question me when they come and they take out the old meter and they put in the new meter, and they do all the fitting and retrofitting to make it all work. When they're done, they paint everything on the city side. They leave the other side all crappy. Any reason we couldn't paint the other 2 foot of pipe there? Or?
I check into it, but
I'm serious.
Technically,
I've had to come. People say, "Well, they paint mine to this side."
yeah.
You probably noticed it too.
Okay, I can address that. We should be able to. Technically, it's on the customer side, but we can, while we're there.
But most of the time, it's only about not this long of a piece of pipe.
Yeah.
And where it goes in the wall or whatever.
I'll check into that.
So,
Should be a simple fix.
because they've got all that parts.
Yeah.
I seem to have no problem with that. Everyone I've seen, they seem to go right in there.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Been changed out pretty good. It'd be a simple fix. Any other questions on the gas? On the electric side, I can congratulate Jarrett Paulin. He finished his 2-week pole climbing workshop. Went through it very well. Now he's in the first year of his apprenticeship program. Working out real good. And the crew's finished up on 19th and Van Buren, that corner there. We changed several poles in all the directions. So now we're going to rebuild the line going north from 19th Street on Van Buren. I think there's like 5 poles we're going to have to replace. Actually, they set 2 of them today. They're in need. They're getting pretty old. Then we did replace our battery charger at our central sub. Last month, we replaced all the batteries in the sub. When they did the testing, they noticed the battery charger wasn't quite charging to the level it needed to. They run some tests on it. The crew that does our maintenance in our substations, they recommended we get a new charger. Since we got the new batteries, we spent that much money on the new batteries. So we ordered the battery charger and we went ahead. We had to shut down the substation, switch loads, but the crews replaced it ourselves, so we didn't have to have them come back and get that labor cost. And then we just set 10 new poles. Got a picture. out towards St. Henry, there's about a half-mile lane. Some of the poles are pretty old. As you can see, they found a tag on one of them from 1961. That's how old copper lines, so.
For a whole.
We don't have a lot of copper left, do you?
Nope, we've pretty well eliminated a lot of it.
Yeah, I know you did that project a couple of years ago. There just can't be much copper left out there.
Our main line from the city park to, a couple miles. The main line's all copper yet, but it's the big, thick copper. Well, this is a small,
That's a thin stuff.
thin stuff where it breaks pretty easy. Combines, the poles are so short, some of them were 25-foot poles. The combines caught it a couple times, snapped them. We had to go out and replace them. Some of them were rotten, where we've had to go out during storms and spend time there setting a new pole. So we got them all set, new wires run, and finished her up. And right now, like I say, they're working on Van Buren north of 19th. As a storm Sunday night, we just had an isolated outage on West 4th. Tree limb took some lines down. No poles broke because they've been replaced several years ago, so they're fairly new poles. So the poles held up and just the line broke, so we just sliced it together and put everybody back in power. Probably 10 customers maybe.
You guys did a fantastic job. I mean, so many friends from out of town were without power, so thank you.
Yep, thank you.
The whole crew, thank you.
Any questions on the electric?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks, John. And Water Superintendent Jerry Austin.
Good evening. We'll start with our distribution. I kind of touched on it last month in our council meeting, ending our hydrant flushing. We had 3 failed fire hydrants throughout our distribution system. Most of them were older, either Clow Eddies or we've got some other brands of fire hydrants as well. They're phased out as far as making parts for them to fix them. The city kind of set a standard, I think it was about 12 years ago, to go to a Mueller centurion hydrant. It's got the stork fitting on it for the fire department for their use. So anytime we come up to an old hydrant that's failed, we just automatically replace it with the new Mueller. So the locations that we placed those in was one on Christopher Court, one at 1307 North Main Street, and one at 17th and Medical Arts Drive. During that time, we have 9 sample stations throughout our community. The city's required to take 7 bacteria samples a month. So we can't take them from the same sample stations every month. So we constantly move those 7 samples around those 9 stations, as well as we take quarterly samples for other things throughout the year as well. And they bounce around from sample station to sample station. The old ones were a cast metal that were painted. We found that a lot of them, we're starting to get a lot of rust issues on them. They're showing discoloration in the water from that rust. So the new ones that they've came out to replace those are all stainless steel. So we replaced 3 of those sample stations, one at Hickory Drive, one at behind the Circle S gas station there at 2nd Avenue, and the one at 1307 North Main Street, which is behind it's the Marathon gas station now, the old Swifties. With all that going on, we also started the 8th Street water main replacement this past month. We started that project by putting out temporary water main in the gutter pan. Once we got that laid, it was charged, bacteria samples were taken, passed. And at that point, we were able to run service lines above ground for the homeowners, so they were only without water for a matter of minutes while we hooked their services up to that line versus being on a boiler the whole time we did the project. Once that was done, we cut the whole street down 8th Street. We replaced the water main. directly in its place that it was in. So we pulled the old out, we put new in. We did pull all new service lines while we were doing that. We replaced the old copper with new poly service lines and backfilled the street. The street is currently, I believe, from my understanding with the talks with Jason Stom, they are, I believe it's Calcar. Don't quote me on that company. But they are actually mobilizing equipment to redo 8th Street, I believe. Calcar? Okay. It got approved for the community crossing grant, if I'm not mistaken, sidewalks, curbs, and street.
Yeah.
So
Starting sidewalks and curbs here this week or maybe.
I believe that's the way he talked. It was going to be this week yet. The equipment was going to be there. It's starting to dig things out. So we did just rock cap that for that reason. They're going to come back in and rip it all out and put base down. So it will be put back. With that being said, though, it was roughly 620 foot of water main that the guys were to replace with all the rainouts this week. We figured they got the actual main out of the ground, in the ground in 5 days. So there was a lot more to that with service lines, putting service lines in and putting new meter jugs and setters and everything in there in that block as well. But went great. Other than that, we had another service line at Hunter's Crossing in Zone 1. I believe that's our 9th service line, copper service line that's failed. Just like in the past, the outside of the copper's corroded. Don't really have an answer for it. It could have been bad copper when it was purchased by the contractor that put that in. There's reports of electrolysis. It could be numerous things. The soil could be, that was a floodplain before. It could be things in the soil that's just counteracting with that copper. So we were able to pull that service line. We did have to take up a section of sidewalk where the main is under the sidewalk out there. But we were able to pull the old service line and pull a new one in at the same time, so we didn't have to dig up any roadway for that. And then to wrap that up, we've had some water main breaks in the past months that the street department was ready to patch. So we usually go out with them, help patch the roads back. We went out and worked with them on the sidewalk to get the sidewalk put back together in Jago and things like that. We also were visited by our mayor this month. He came out for a day and worked with the guys. They really enjoyed that. They enjoyed to see him out there talking to them and asking about their concerns. And he even came back with a pair of dirty gloves and dirty jeans. So he got out there and worked with them. So, that's right. So that's they really appreciated that, seeing him getting out there and asking questions and taking an interest in what they do on a day-to-day basis. So we appreciate that as well. Our filtration plant, it's running as usual. One thing I didn't put on here, back towards the end of last year, our night shift plant operator, Greg Miller, he retired. So we've been trying to find somebody to fill that position. We've been trying since he retired, and we finally had an applicant step forth that's willing to work a second/night shift job. And it's actually Doug Polly. He did work for the street department. He's interested in that night shift. It's what he's done in the past with the coal mine and things like that. So he's been working with us for about 3 weeks, kind of learning the ropes and grasping what we do out there. We've got his books are ordered, so he'll start studying and taking tests. And as soon as he's ready to move to that night shift position, we'll move him to nights as far as treating water out at the treatment plant. So we're figuring probably roughly 3 months with training on day shifts to get him comfortable and getting us comfortable with having him do that by himself out there. So other than that, our metering system, we're still installing those large diameter meters. We do have more ordered. We kind of had a hiccup there with ordering meters. Our previous meter supplier dropped our meter company. So we had another company within the area. Core and Main picked up that meter supply, or the census metering system. So we had to switch to them to order our meters and our radios and stuff now. So we're still working on those last few large diameter water meters in our system. And then just another thing on here, we did have the IRWA, it's the Indiana Rural Water Association, held a water conference here in Huntingburg. It's what water and wastewater uses to maintain our CEUs to be able to hold our licenses. So they had that down at the city park this past month, and water and wastewater employees were down there to take part in that and keep their hours up for their licenses.
Met with the director last week. They were impressed by your group and
Yeah.
how well you host them, and they'll be back next year, they say.
Yeah. It's always a great turnout. They're a great group to work with. They make it easy. Honestly, we work with the Parks Department, and really while it's going on, we keep water jugs full for everybody there, and help the park take care of the trash. There's an abundance of trash. There's communities from all over the state of Indiana that come to that. So we work well together and keep it rolling. So we'll be glad to have them back next year. Other than that, if you guys have any questions.
How many continuous education hours are required a year?
So it's different with each license. We hold a DSL, which is a distribution large license for the distribution system. And then there's with water, our water treatment plant requires a WT4 license to run that. Plus now, since we've upgraded our water treatment facility, the water department has to hold an ASO wastewater license as well to be able to handle the sludge and the drying beds. And then there's a handful of us that also have a cross-contamination and backflow certification. The wastewater license that we hold carries 10 hours. The WT4 license holds 30, and the DSL, I believe, holds 15. And then the backflow and cross-contamination cert, there's just updates that come out that you have to acknowledge that you've read and you understand. And
That's annually?
the license is every 3 years
Okay.
for those. Yeah, those CEUs are every 3 years.
Okay.
So and sometimes it takes us 3 years, being that we're so small. There's 2 of these in French Lick, and the one in Huntingburg at the park. The one in Huntingburg at the park, you can only obtain 5 hours. And then the ones at French Lick, they're a 2.5 day. So you can only obtain so many hours there too. But being such a small system, we can only send a few guys one day and a few guys the second day. So if you're sick and you miss one of those days, it's very easy to get behind. We are able to, the AWWA, the Alliance, and then the Indiana Rural Water, they also offer like Zoom classes and things that you can pay for and sit through as well. It's kind of nice to get to go to the conferences because you get to sit there in person and ask questions. There's a lot of round tables that you can go set in for, like this lead and copper thing that's big and new. Everybody's sharing ideas on what they're doing and asking questions that you never knew you wanted to ask, but once you got the answer, you were glad you had. So they're great. That you get to meet a lot of local utilities. We've been able to meet some utilities that's had some water main leaks that we were able to work with and help them find their leaks, and vice versa, with things going on as well. So it's great for building a relationship with the communities around us.
Could be.
How is the project coming as far as all the holes that are being bored and?
So we did this past month. We were working on them a little bit at the beginning of the month, and with the timeline on the water main replacement on 8th Street, working there in between the rain and stuff, we did put it on hold for this month. But we did just, I want to say Tuesday of last week, we had our 300-hour service on our hydro excavator. So that's we bought that last March, I believe, towards the end of March. So we've put 300 hours on it. Most of that is the lead and copper, but we have found it to be very useful in our other day-to-day operations. I believe the last time I came, we had somewhere in between 300 and 400 services yet to identify. This month, it's like I said, it's kind of been a slow month for us, trying to get that water main replaced to stay ahead of schedule for that. So I will definitely have an update for you guys next month.
You're on First Street sometimes.
So we do, yeah, we do have, so what we do with that is we go out and we core drill first. You can't really do, it's harder to do one at a time than to do a few blocks. So we come out with our pump trailer. We have a 80-gallon water tank attached to it with a pump. We can use our core drill. We'll core drill one road for 3 or 4 blocks. The cores stay in the road, so you'll see just a perfect circle cut. And once that's done, we'll come out after that. We usually put a bolt in those cores to pull them out, and then we bring the hydro excavator, we suck them out, and then we'll come behind with sand and fill them in, pack them, and then sometimes you see road cones setting over them. There's road cones in yards in the grass. If they're out in the roadways too far, where they're more in the driving path, where it's going to cause conflict with cars passing each other, we use 5/8 plywood and concrete nails. That's what the county uses for things like that. So we kind of took that idea, and Jason helped us out with that with the street department. So, and then once we get enough of them, we're ahead enough. Either now, since we're getting asphalt in with the city, we'll give it the street department and we'll patch them with asphalt from the asphalt plant, or we continue to use the bag mix that's a permanent replacement. So we're trucking along, and hopefully to be done sooner than later.
We're still good on the deadlines that the.
Still, yeah, oh yeah. So they did release that now they are going to allow unknowns for service lines. So you can have whether they are lead, whether they're not lead, or now they're finding communities their deadlines are they're not possible. So now they're going to allow you to mark unknowns on your inventory. My goal, I don't want to say it's far-fetched, but it's a lot because we do everything else, is I would like to have all of ours inventoried and what little lead we do have replaced before that date, so we're done with it and we don't have to worry about it. So
It's a good idea.
You're pretty close though, aren't you?
we are. Out of roughly 3,600 services, we have, like I said, in between 300 and 400 that we don't know. So, and we've been working on it for a little over a year. The labor side of it, we've been working on since last March. But we were working on it a year prior to that, going through all of our project records and everything like that, to where we could eliminate roadways and stuff with water main replacements and projects. Any water main that was put in or after, we went with 1987. They outlawed lead in 86, so we figured we'd give it a year. You know, you never know what old stocks used. So we separated a year, so we were able to take all that out of it as well. So it's something we've been working on for a couple of years, and we'll be ecstatic when it's done, and wait for what's next. So.
Gary, you had mentioned at a previous meeting how many properties in Hunter's Crossing you felt like had the bad copper, and there was a point where I think it had been changed over to something else, so they're not continuing to put that in the ground.
Well,
Can you address that real quick for me?
so far, we've only seen the issues in the Zone 1 or Section 1, that first portion that was built.
Phase 1.
Phase 1, there you go, Phase 1. Phase 1 has been our biggest issue with it. Unfortunately, Phase 2 and Phase 3, they were still copper. We hadn't seen this issue a lot. We'd seen it a little bit, but we wasn't sure what the problem was with it. When we got into Phase 4, which unfortunately is the last phase, is when we started asking around, talking to people with AWWA, the IRWA, other water utilities, and they've all started to see the same thing. So at that point, we kind of took the route they were doing. We got together and talked about it as a department, and we felt that the best option for us was to switch to poly, which there's not, us and Jasper were the last two in DuBois County that I know of that still use copper, and Jasper doesn't use copper anymore either. They use poly. So and unfortunately it's, we were a little late. Maybe not, but
Do you foresee just, saying we're going to replace these, whether they fail or not? We're just gonna get them out of there?
we've talked about it. If we ever get caught up with everything else that we have, there's still some blocks of water main that are a common nuisance that we have water main leaks on that we're trying to get on our schedule to replace. It's all It's all based off money.
Yeah.
With upgrading our water treatment facility and the water main down Main Street, the solar field, it was all needed. The solar field's been a great asset. I know when Buzz was here, Pam, I don't think you were on the board then. Our last rate adjustment, I think, we figured it out that solar field, since it was put in, has been saving us about $40,000 a year on our electric cost. So, it's everything that was done was, I'm not going to say any of it was a bad decision or a bad thing. But with that being said, it took a lot of money to do that. So we're in the point to now. Last year we were able to replace roughly, I want to say close to 2,000 feet of water main. The year before that, we just replaced 500 feet there at the end of the year on Hickory Drive. I take that back. Last year we actually replaced, that was 1,500, no, that was this year. 1,500 feet on 2nd Street this year, and then the 600 feet there on 8th Street. So that's our goal, is that main infrastructure, that water main. They're constantly failing in town. We've anytime we can get the old caster ductile out, it helps. I know everybody in the community has an issue if they have a whole house water filter. Their water filter is always dirty. It's always got a dirty color to it. The water's safe to drink. I've been seeing that a lot lately. We're held to standards on that. We have to take tests on that, daily, hour. There's some tests we have to take hourly at the water treatment facility. Some of them are every 4 hours, but we're always sending samples off to the labs as well. A lot of that you see on your water filters is the mineral deposits that are holding on the inside of that cast iron and ductile water main. The new plastic C900 water main that we're installing, it's slick, it's plastic, it's not porous, so none of that is able to leach on to that pipe. Unfortunately, with that being said, a lot of our pipe is C900, especially in a lot of our newer subdivisions, but all the water main to get there is cast and ductile. So we're trying the best we can to update our distribution system and make it better. It's just all comes down to the financial side of it.
That's most things do.
Right, oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
I do think the long game here, this is a marathon, not really.
It is. It really is. And by the time we get done,
Starting over.
which will probably be after my time, the next guys will be standing here saying the same thing. It's the cost that it takes to treat water, to pump water into town and things like that. Unfortunately I pay a water bill too. But it's one of those resources that you can't live without. I think they say you can live 7 days without water, or sorry, 7 days. 7 days without water is what you can live, and it's the cost of it's expensive enough. If we start trying to replace everything all at one time, nobody's going to be able to afford it. That's the big thing. We try to do what we can.
Probably light years ahead of other communities anyway.
Right. Oh yeah. There's a lot of communities. We flush our fire hydrants twice a year. One major thing with that is we are ripping that water through the water mains faster than it comes out anywhere to anybody's house. So that helps rip those mineral deposits out. With that being said, it also shows our weak spots in our mains. Anytime there's weak cast or ductile and it starts to pull those deposits off the side of the water main, that's where it'll show our water main breaks. We like that better because it's more controlled. It's in the warmer months, not in the winter months. So we're able to get out there and do that when it's better for us. Also, it's better for the fire department. We find our weak spots with our fire hydrants. And then we exercise every valve in our distribution system once a year. Whenever we have a water main break on a block, just one street that's 500 foot long, usually we can shut that 500 feet down if we have to shut the water completely off to cut a piece of pipe in. And that saves half the community from being on a boil or from having to shut half the community off, just because we do exercise our valves and we are able to shut down our system and isolate it like that. So if we didn't, there's communities that don't exercise their valves, and when they try to shut their valves off, those same mineral deposits leach onto those valves because they're cast as well. And you try to shut them down and there's so much buildup in them, you can't get them shut off. So it's, we get out there twice a year, and it's came a long way. We've got some battery powered tools that turn valves you just have to hold on to now. So trying to stay away from rotator cuff surgeries and back injuries, but they get out there and do it. And unfortunately, it's probably as fun as watching paint dry, but it's got to be done. So they don't complain about it. But,
Thank you. Good job.
all righty. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, next week, Phil? you wanna
Yeah,
talk
a
about the low
couple,
resolution?
meetings ago, you approved a bond ordinance authorizing the issuance up to $50 million in bond issue for our wastewater project. And as you recall, those bonds are going to be purchased by the Rural Development, United States Department of Agriculture and Rural Development Administration. And they have they accept our bond ordinance, but they have their own loan resolution that they want us to adopt as well. It's essentially a restatement of everything we assured that we would do in our bond ordinance. Unfortunately, what I gave you, apparently, it wasn't filled in. I mean, what appeared on board pack, the blanks weren't filled in. But we have to adopt 3 different resolutions because one for $9 million, one for $7.85 million, and one for $4.4 million, because they're not set up to process loans bigger than $10 million, so that we have to do it in 3 different resolutions for them. So we'll need to adopt 3 resolutions. The first one would be to authorize borrowing $9 million from the Rural Development Authority.
That would be resolution 2024-12.
It's just adoption by motion and vote.
Make a motion to adopt 2024-12.
I'll second the motion.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The second resolution would be 2024-13, and that one would be to authorize the loan of $7,853,000 from the Rural Development.
I hear a motion.
I make the motion to approve 2024-13.
My second.
Got a first and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
And then 2024-14 would be for $4,402,000.
I hear a motion to accept.
Motion to adopt.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. Thank you.
That totals $21,255,000. And as you recall, our bids came in higher than anticipated, but Rural Development again came to our rescue, and they've authorized an additional $19.5 million. That has to be covered by 2 resolutions subsequent to this, because it hasn't received formal approval from USDA yet. So we can't adopt those resolutions until they formally approve them at USDA.
Our local office was talking to DC at 4:30. I was hoping I had something on my phone. We haven't heard anything, so.
You and Tom need to sign those 3.
So, but I think things are looking good. We'll get that 2.11 money.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Treasurer Tom Dipple, you have a budget calendar?
Yeah, I put that out every year for everybody, just to look at and review. Right now, I got the budget meeting, the budget hearing scheduled for October the 3rd, and then the budget adoption meeting for October the 22nd. Between those two, the AIM conference is there, so there's a little bit more than 2 weeks. No action, I just want you to
Okay.
look it over, but at some point, we'll have to decide what days we want to do the budget meetings.
That's usually August, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a tentative mid-August, we just have to make a date.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Any other items? Council items? Citizen items?
Mayor?
About the-
Cancel.
about
We have
the
somebody
youth
here
group.
intently writing over here. Do you have anything to present tonight, or you would like to?
We're gonna be working on, the city, or the community garden a little bit this summer, but other than that.
And you and I are gonna be working together, calendar of maybe doing some fun things next year with the mayor's council and, trying to get them more involved in the government end of it too, as we go forward. And recruit a few new people. All right. Thank you, because we had a couple graduate this year
Oh, yeah.
from the Mayor's Youth Council. All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
All in favor?
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.